Hello, I am picking up right from where I kind of left off the previous vlog, but so we are about to go into the weekend. I have a few hours of work left ahead of me before I can dive into the weekend, but my plan for this weekend is really to prioritize on some sort of like books that I'm really eager to get to. So I think about a week ago I bought, like exactly a week ago, I think I went to the bookstore and bought 4 books for myself, 1 book for my mother for Mother's Day, and then I was kind of already tempted to do a vlog of just like reading, like impulse reading books that I'm really excited about. I didn't end up doing it. I ended up prioritizing the Booker International Prize vlog, but this weekend I'm going to be doing it. So, I'm gonna introduce you some contenders later on, because at this point in time I'm not entirely sure yet on which ones I'm gonna be focusing, because as we saw in last week's Booker International vlog, the physical reading is not on like the top level yet. I am definitely still struggling a little bit with reading physically, and I might want to go for a long walk at some point as well. So maybe I'll have to check out if I have some of these also available to me in the audiobook format, and then I can like prioritize that one. But if not, like it'll just like I'll just have to kind of try and think a little bit realistically in terms of how little reading I got done last weekend and how big of a page count I want to be putting into this weekend. But so yeah, I'm going to be continuing with a little bit of more work, and then I'll check in with you guys later when my weekends can start. So it is already Saturday. I was planning to go for some groceries, not saying much, for some cat food, litter box filler, some plants today, but I don't own a car, so I have to like reserve a car, which I didn't do in advance, and I was just checking out the time slots, but it will only be like at 3 o'clock today, so I actually don't think I'll do it today anymore. I checked and they're open tomorrow morning, so I'll probably just rent a car for tomorrow morning and just like go then. But so I haven't really talked to you guys about what I'm going to be reading this weekend in the end, and I gotta say we're already off to a bad start, because we're like 1 o'clock on Saturday and I have read 15 pages or so in the book. I have actually been listening to an audiobook it's a reread of the first Harry Potter, so I have gotten quite a few pages in already this weekend, just not the pages that I was wanting to, because like that's no priority for me at all. It was actually just supposed to be the book that I was listening to on the commute. It's just that I like felt like playing like games on my phone, and then I often combine that with an audiobook or a YouTube video, and so that's how that ended up happening. But so the 4 books that I was kind of debating between are, first off, The Expanded Earth by Mikey Please, which I don't actually remember what it is about. I picked this up on a whim in the bookstore a month ago or something like that. And because of the cover, it appealed to me, and then I did read the back, but I've forgotten about it in the meantime. But so this was one that I kind of was like, if I could just like pick anything up at this point in time, this is one of the contenders, and which is what is the case for all of these 4 books. Then we have The Incandescent by Emily Tesh, which is a magic school book. And then we have Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, a favorite author. This is a dystopian about a world in which there is no more need for sex. There's no more need for sex in the sense of, like you don't need to have sex to procreate, and so kind of looking at the implications of that. And then the one that I'm currently reading is The Lamb by Lucy Rose, which is a cannibalism book. So basically how I ended up determining to read this is I didn't really know which one of the 4 I wanted to read. I was kind of assuming that it was probably going to be Vanishing World or The Lamb, because these are books that I can potentially still finish within this weekend, because ideally I want to be able to finish the book within this weekend. I'm might read a second book or like start a second book out of these, but definitely I want to be finishing one of them at least. And so this is like the second best option. Vanishing World would have been shorter than this one, but this is also like I think 300 or something like that, probably. Yeah, 300 pages. It has already been quite gory. It has an amazing first line. First line is, on my 4th birthday I plucked 6 severed fingers from the shower drain. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like. So how I ended up choosing this one was I didn't know which one to prioritize out of those 4, so I just sent a picture of all 4 on my Discord. Kitty was the first to react, saying that, you know, she had been close to picking this one up recently in a store in Berlin, and so she wanted to give me, she wanted me to give this one a go. And then Tufty also responded saying that he is in favor of this one because he recognizes the author's name. And so if I do start a second book throughout this vlog, it will be that one. Now I think I'm going to be reading a little bit further. I have put on some ambience music in the background. You don't hear it because I just muted it, but so I've got like a haunted house sort of ambience on. This is more sort of like cabin in the woods type of atmosphere probably, but I didn't want to spend too much time putting on an ambience neither, because it was like, yeah, I just want a little bit of an ambience music to have something going on in the background while reading to intensify the atmosphere of this even further. But I didn't want to like lose time over finding the perfect one neither. And then later today I do definitely still need to edit a video, because it's actually Saturday and normally I should have a video go up, so actually I should do that first. But I think I will just lead a little bit further in this first, just to have a feeling like I'm advancing in some way within this book. Because I've just been, you know, like procrastinating basically most of the time so far. And then tonight I do have a a dance performance to go to, and Eurovision to watch. So later tonight I will not have reading time. You know, I guess technically during Eurovision I might have, but it's just too distracting with all the music in the background, so I'll probably just be actually watching it. But so yeah, I need to get some reading done now if I want to have any chance of finishing this book throughout this weekend. Welcome. Well, hello on this very grey morning over here in Belgium. So yesterday evening I did, like as indicated, I went to a dance performance of my friends, who I really enjoyed the whole time, and then I jumped into Eurovision Song Festival, which lasted until like over 1 o'clock. So, you know, we are not that well rested today. For those interested in my Eurovision views, so like I was happy that we had, like, the jury was there for once, because, you know, that was the only way to get Israel out of first place. Last year Israel was second in the televote, this year it was even first in the televote, so definitely needed the jury vote to get it out of that position. And I hope that the organization finally learns from that, but I guess they probably won't. But so my favorites were Germany, Latvia, and I think by the end it's clear that I kind of had Italy maybe as as my next favorite, because those are the countries that I ended up voting for. I don't typically vote for Eurovision. I just felt like I kind of needed to put some counterweight in there this year, but yeah, I guess if I would have really wanted to put some counterweight in, I should have voted for the clear favorites, I guess, to help them out. But yeah, I had a fun time with Eurovision as always, but you know, that televote was just so frustrating, and I hope that, you know, we can actually get back to music and ban Israel next year to avoid all of this political voting. So yeah, I watched Eurovision last night, and as a consequence I did not read as much as hoped yesterday in the Lamb. So will I even be able to finish this book within this vlog? That is already an uncertainty at this point, because I read some 70 pages or so in it. I am enjoying it. And I am going through it rather quickly, but as I indicated last week in my reading vlog, the physical reading just isn't there yet. I'm still very distracted. And I feel like it's going better already with this book than compared to last weekend, but it's definitely still not there. So I have rented a car around now-ish. So I'll just finish my coffee and then go to the garden center to get some food for my cats and some cat litter. So yeah, that's the only thing that I'm really gonna be doing today actively, and then I'll have the rest of the day to read, and hopefully I can get quite a further chunk in the Lamb done today, because ideally I want to finish it this weekend, just because I like this idea of just throughout the weekend start and finish a book. But yeah, if it's not happening, then it's not happening, of course. I'm not gonna suffer in order to read over 200 pages in the book today when that hasn't been happening for a long time. So yeah, that's my update for now. About the book, I guess I should also update you. As I indicated, I am enjoying it. We start off with a lot of brutal cannibalism scenes. So in case you were wondering, yes, it's a very clear cannibalism book. I think in the first chapter or so, we're introduced to the fact that there's this stray boy that they have killed and eaten. So yeah, it's not like a spoiler, it's not something that happens at the end, it's not a climactic end sequence with cannibalism. It's there from the very get-go. It is definitely what it's all about. And so it's interesting. So they're living in this cabin in the woods, and so they basically have these people show up at their door from time to time who are basically lost in the woods, and that's how they end up getting their victims, getting their meat, getting their food. And the kid actually goes to a regular school as well. She has regular human interactions, but those are people, of course, who are kind of off limits for them, because that would just put too much attention to them. Yeah, thanks for these shots. That would just draw way too much attention to them, of course, if they were going to start, cutting into the local population. So they're really kind of living off of, literally, people getting lost in the woods in that neighborhood. And the mother is basically sort of the first cannibal in the family, who always felt like she was different from her parents, and who one day gave into those urges, and is now raising her kid like that. And I like how it's also kind of talking about there's this the kid is kind of struggling with mathematics, for example, and there's this scene in which he's kind of trying to explain mathematics to her, and he's kind of going okay, if there are 3 kids, there are 5 apples, and every kid gets 1 apple and the mother gets 2. What happens when there are 10 apples? How would they be distributed? And in her mind, it's just the mother takes 7 and the 3 remaining go for the kids. She's not looking at it as an even distribution, and in her mind that makes perfect sense, because her mother would never give her a sort of bigger share if there was more food available. She would just keep the same sort of small share for the kid, and the mother would get the lion's share, because this kid's, she doesn't really seem to have any real affection for it, and it's more of a hindrance to her than an actual bond being there between them. It's just useful for her to have this kid around, because it kind of lulls people into a false sense of security to see a kid there in that cabin with this woman. But so yeah, I am really enjoying this. I like cannibal books. I don't know what that says about me, but I like exploring that dark side, I guess. But this one definitely has some explanations that are quite gruesome is maybe a little bit of a harsh word, because it's not even some super harsh scenes. I guess it's just the casualness in which it's discussed, because we're reading this from the perspective of this child who's grown up with cannibalism being in her life always. So her casually talking about eating fingers, is quite gruesome, because I'm just imagining it and like the bones and all that. And it gave a whole new meaning to the word finger food. So just saying. Alright, so I got totally sidetracked. It's 4 o'clock. I have not done any reading today because when I got back from the garden center, it turned out that I had forgotten that it was like our neighbor fest. And so my neighbors were all getting ready for a barbecue, and you know, I didn't have anything to bring to the barbecue, but they were like, yeah, no, we'll have more than plenty enough, just join us. Because yeah, I totally forgotten that it was today. So meaning that it is now 4 o'clock, I've just gotten back from the neighborhood barbecue. I had to get out of there because it's super cold, and so I was just getting too undercooled at this point in time. So yeah, we are not doing the best this weekend when it comes to reading, but so yeah, there are weekends like that of course as well. Just kind of wish that then maybe that could have helped me like focus a little bit more yesterday, but so we still have time today. The weekend isn't over. Let's still try and get some decent amount of pages in, and make some decent progress in this book, though it won't be finished tonight. I can definitely say that at this point in time. Alright, more than a week later when I'm checking in with you guys at this point in time. But so I have finished The Lamb by Lucy Rose. I finished it, I think, Tuesday evening or already Monday evening, not entirely sure anymore. But I gotta say that my sort of like enjoyment of it did kind of wane a little bit towards the latter half, or more likely like the last third of it, 25% or something of that. I just felt like that section felt a little bit more drawn out to me, or maybe there were other factors involved that I cannot really fully pinpoint. But for me, I definitely felt like I definitely noticed myself getting a little bit more impatient with it towards the latter sections of it, and getting to feel like, okay, are we going to start wrapping this up now? I will definitely say that, you know, the ending, while not surprising me at that point, is probably not where I expected this to go from the very beginning. Can you stop stealing my audience? You know they love you more than me. So by the end, I definitely I like that ending. I don't think like it's definitely leading towards it in that final 25%. It's not where I would have seen it go at from the beginning, but it's definitely a tension that is there throughout the book, and that you start to kind of feel earlier on in the book, though you're not necessarily already sure at that point in time that it is going to go there. But so yeah, I enjoyed this book. But all in all, it just ended up becoming more of a 3.5 star read, maybe a 3.8. But so it just ended up falling a little bit flat because of that fact, where towards the end I was like not struggling with it, but just like not as invested anymore, not as eager to pick it up every single second. It was still like I switched to the audiobook at that point. Maybe it is that, but I don't really think that that has anything to do with it. When I first started the audiobook, I didn't really have that issue. But so it was still easy to go through in the audiobook form and stuff like that, but I just felt myself, you know, getting a little bit more impatient with it and feeling like it could have tightened up that final section of the book. But so yeah, that meant that last weekend I finally got to read just like finally I managed to focus on something, just sort of like impulsively read one of the newer books on my TBR. I really enjoyed that experience. I would have loved to be able to pick up something else as well, but then on Sunday I had that unexpected neighbor's barbecue that I thought was going to happen in the weekend that I'm currently at, and so I was unprepared for, and that's just like meant that like 4 hours or something out of that day were all of a sudden gone. But let's be fair, what would I have done in those 4 hours? Probably not read an entirely different book. It would have just meant that I would have probably been able to finish The Lamb within the weekend itself, rather than draw it out a little bit into the week. But so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know if you want me to do these types of things more, just like picking up a random book in a weekend that I didn't necessarily have any intentions to do. Like I definitely don't think it has any sort of a difference for you guys as a viewer, but who knows, maybe it does. But so yeah, I'm gonna round up this video and I guess start a new vlog. But so yeah, see you guys for the next video. Bye!